Now, hear House Bill 978 from Representative Dogan, and welcome, my friend, and you may begin at any time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for having me. Thanks to members of the committee. I'm Representative Jeff Dogan, representing the 98th District, West St. Louis County, and HB 978 is a bill that requires the Department of Probation and Parole to release any offender who is serving a life sentence without parole for marijuana offenses. And right now there's only one person in the state who fits this category, Jeff Mizanskey. He has been convicted of 3 marijuana offenses. 2 were sales, 1 was simple possession. And I believe very strongly that Jeff Mizanskey is a victim of poor public policy and incredibly bad timing on his account. His first couple of offenses, one was a possession only, like I said, one was a sale of a very small amount, and he had the misfortune of committing these offenses, the last couple of offenses, in the early 90s when we had crime waves across the country, including in this state, and Missouri passed a prior and persistent drug offender law at the time, which allowed for up to a life without parole sentence for people convicted of felonies, including drugs, including violent crimes. Jeff's particular circumstance, he never committed any violence in relation to these marijuana offenses. He never sold any drugs to children. There were no mitigating circumstances that I think that caused this sentence to be a just one. And yet he was treated the same as a murderer, sentenced to a life without parole sentence. And I believe that it's time for us as a legislator, it's time for our governor to correct this injustice. Last year, several legislators, a bipartisan group of 30 House and Senate members, sent a letter to the governor asking him to grant clemency to Jeff Mizanskey. That petition was ignored. When the governor released his latest batch of clearances in December, he did not grant clemency to anyone who was currently serving time in prison. So I presented this bill as a way for us to save taxpayers' money, to right an injustice that was done to Mr. Mizanskey, and to be in consistency with our current statutes. Last year we also, those of you who were here last year, passed a striking revision of the criminal code, which eliminated the possibility of this type of a sentence for this type of offense, which was great public policy in contrast to what we did in the 90s. And I think that consistent with that change, which doesn't take effect for a couple of years, but if anybody else falls into that category between now and then, this bill would also cover them. So I'm open to any questions you have. Thanks.
Okay, well, thank you. And if I butcher his name, Mizanskey, I'm not sure exactly how to say it, but
Mizanskey.
Okay. How long has he been incarcerated?
For close to 21 years.
21 years. And I have you looked at his, while incarcerated, a lot of times when you think of an inmate who's been locked up that long, what about his past as far as what type of a prisoner he was? Was he a model prisoner? Was he a problem prisoner? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, according to everyone at Jefferson City Correctional, he's been a model prisoner. He's behaved himself very well. He has completed rehabilitation courses, every one that's been offered. He's rehabilitated his drug use so that, I was able to visit with him in JCCC, and he told me and a couple other representatives that were there that if he's released, he definitely will not be going back to that type of lifestyle.
Well, I will tell you this. I had an opportunity to meet with this gentleman myself, Representative Neely and myself, and I'd like to remind this committee that in 21 years he's been incarcerated. 21 years, he's had 2 write-ups. One for having a messy floor in his cell, and the other one was for dropping a letter in the wrong box. And those are the only 2 write-ups that he's had in 21 years. So I just want to remind this committee. Okay, anyone have any questions? I'm sure that we do, and we'll start with Representative Hubbard. You may begin. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, you said this gentleman was given a life sentence without the possibility of probation or parole on a marijuana case?
Right.
You sure of that?
Yes. Well, it was three marijuana offenses.
All right, thank you.
Representative Mims, proceed.
Your bill, to inquire, Mr. Chair.
No, you're fine, just proceed, you're good.
Your bill, will it only just cover this gentleman or all of them that have pretty much the same sentences?
It covers anyone who has that sentence. Right now, he's the only one who fits in that category, but if there was anybody given that sentence between now and 2017, it would also cover them.
Mr. Chairman, because I don't know if everybody else received the packet from the gentleman that's 25 years, but it's pretty much the same, and he served 24 of those years so far. So I just want to make sure if this bill is just one person or it's going to fit everybody, because you know, most of them that are in there on marijuana charges right now, it's just grown. The prisons have just grown. And my concern is on minor offenses like this one, will it fit them all, not just one?
Yeah, this only applies to people who have a life without parole sentence.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any other questions? Representative Roden, proceed.
Just so I'm clear on this one, the language on this is basically forcing probation parole to authorize the release of Jeff. It's not saying that he is being given an actual word or a hearing by the probation and parole, correct?
Right.
So this is forcing legislation onto probation and parole from doing their job. Is that what I'm kind of...
Well, because he's sentenced to life without parole, so they have no authority to parole him right now. So
we can't authorize that they hear his case, or that the only way we can do it is specifically to write a law that pertains just to this individual or any individual in that circumstance.
To my understanding, it is something that necessitates a change in the law.
And he's never had a parole hearing, is correct? It's my understanding, he's never had one.
That's right.
Well, that's where my
Go ahead.
concern. I think that's where my concern is are we overstepping our authorities and telling probation and parole, you will release this individual without having a probation and parole hearing? And that's where I don't want to overstep our boundaries, because 100 pounds of marijuana is not a minor offense.
7 pounds.
Was it 7 pounds? Last, I thought the letter was 100 pounds that was involved in the transition.
No, it was 7.
Okay. Even 7 pounds of marijuana is a lot of marijuana compared to a ticketable offense and what we consider a misdemeanor crime.
Representative Hubbard, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to clear up a few things. First of all, probation and parole are not the persons responsible for administering that type of sentence. That's the judge. And normally, once the judge imposes a sentence and a person comes into the Department of Corrections, then the only thing that the the parole office does is, based on what the current statutes are in place as it relates to the sentence, that's how it's determined whether or not they're going to be given a date for probation and parole. The only reason I know this is because I served as one of the parole board members for 6 years. So that's pretty much with the court. So I guess that's why we're here today, to see about changing statutes.
Thank you, Representative Hubbard. And I want to reiterate what she just said. A lot of times people look at the Department of Corrections as the one that's the bad person here. You know, they're just carrying out the sentence. It's the judicial system is the one that makes the sentence, and they just carry it out. So they're just doing what they're told to do. And that was a good comment there, Representative Hubbard. I really appreciate you bringing that forward. Any other questions for the witness? All right, Representative Shumate, proceed.
In reading the law, the change here, it's hard for me to understand how this could apply to anyone but the one we're talking about, because it says incarcerated on August 28th. So the person would have to be incarcerated already for this law to apply to them. Or am I not seeing something here?
Go ahead, Representative Bratton. Join in.
Stating whoever is already incarcerated by this date with that sentence. So, I mean, he's already incarcerated and already under that sentence. So it would apply to him because he's technically the only person incarcerated with a life without parole sentence.
Yeah, I thought the representative was telling us it could apply to someone else too. I mean, in the future.
If there
Somebody's
were to be someone that had that sentence is what he was kind of saying, but technically he is the only person that has that sentence.
That's right.
If I'm,
And to address that concern, and also I've heard a concern from a couple of people about the possible constitutionality of this bill. So what I intend to do is to have a member of this committee offer an amendment to strike the August 28th, 2015 portion of it, so it will apply to anybody else.
Okay. Representative Schumate, are you,
Yeah, and the thing that concerned me there, that if someone was, got a recent conviction for this, a whole tractor trailer load of marijuana or something like that, then that could be a pretty short sentence for somebody that's got a sentence in between now and then.
That is a good point. I hope nobody in the interim sentences someone to a life without, but that is a possibility.
Yes, thank you.
Representative, proceed.
Thank you. Representative, I appreciate your bill, and just to clarify some of this stuff, I was a prosecutor with the city of St. Louis, so basically what Mr. Dogan is doing is, like he's stating, when we did the criminal code, we changed what's called life without the possibility of parole, walkable cases for possession of controlled substance, marijuana charges. So basically, in Mr. Mizanskey's case, Mizanskey's case, sorry, he had possession of controlled substance first time, marijuana. The second time he got caught, possession of marijuana the second time. So when he got caught the third time, under our previous statute, that's called life without the possibility of parole. Just 3 marijuana charges. So he was not eligible for parole. When we changed our criminal codes, a lot of the judges previously with the drug courts, they were hesitant to sentence people to that walkable offense. That means any possession of any controlled substance, if you have 3 strikes, you automatically life without the possibility of parole. So they changed that statute, but what happens is it's not retroactive. And this bill basically makes it retroactive to, I guess he's saying that this is the only individual in the Department of Corrections that fits under this walkable offense for possession of marijuana. So that's why he has it drafted like this, because even though we changed our criminal codes, they did not go back to people who were previously incarcerated prior to the changes. So that's what this bill addresses. Is that correct? Sorry.
That's right. Thanks, Representative. for that
So
clarification.
it's been a change with a lot of the courts. I'm not saying that we're trying to let everyone out for possession of controlled substances, but it's just been the move that even with possession of oxycodone, if you had 3 strikes of any controlled substance, your life without the possibility of parole. And a lot of these people were considered nonviolent offenders. I'm with law enforcement. I've had some problems with some of those issues, but life without the possibility of parole and not giving people a chance to do treatment, that's a problem. So that's my spiel, sorry.
Thank you, Representative, for bringing that forward. It's my understanding that this gentleman was offered a much lesser sentence when he was actually sentenced to life without parole. I guess the numbers in my head, I'm not sure where I read this, 10 to 13 years. Obviously, this gentleman would already have been released on his own, but for some reason, he didn't accept the deal. And can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Sure. From what I understand, from the person who prosecuted him, Jeff Mizanskey, who's now a judge in Pettis County, he offered him a deal of 30 years initially. And unfortunately, the records, you can't look it up on CaseNet or whatnot, but he offered him 30 years to his recollection. And Mr. Mizanskey thought that was too long, didn't want to plead to that, and so he took it to trial. And the first one, it was a mistrial, actually. So he came back again for the second trial. He offered him 20 years, and he again didn't want to take the 20 years. He thought that was too long, because the gentleman who was also selling on that third offense, the person who arranged for the deal, got a 10-year sentence. So he thought that would have been unfair for him to have to serve twice the amount of time, I'm presuming, again, since there's no records of this plea negotiation, but that's what I imagine was probably in his head.
It's also my understanding that the judge who actually sentenced him has said, come forward and said, hey, you know, this guy has done enough time, it's time to cut him loose. Can you elaborate a little bit on that one also?
He has. Judge Middlehauser wasn't able to be here today, unfortunately, but he wrote a letter last year to the governor also supporting the clemency and saying that he believed that he should have been incarcerated for his crimes, but the punishment should fit the crime, and 20 years was enough, and he supports his clemency.
Thank you. As this committee knows, the letter I sent you last week, the Department of Corrections is actually trying to find places to house our inmates. The prison population here in the state of Missouri has increased over 32,000. The question is, do we build a new prison, or do we find ways to put some of these nonviolent criminals that are behind bars with long sentences back out on the street and make them citizens? And this is a big question that we have to address, this committee needs to address. So, is there anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry, Representative Black?
Just to inquire.
You bet.
I just want some clarity. The judge that sentenced him, you had mentioned the prosecutor. I thought you said that was Middlehauser that's now a judge?
Yes, he
Okay,
was the prosecutor. He's
Okay,
not a
so
judge.
that's the gentleman who has said that was an overreach of sentencing. But the judge actually that imposed the sentence, who was that? And what has he spoke out publicly on his sentence?
I'm not aware of the former judge's opinion on the case.
So the one that you spoke of that has had a change of opinion on that was actually the prosecutor at the time?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Representative Hill, proceed.
Thank you,
You
Mr.
bet.
Chair. I just wanted to comment as somebody that has pretty extensive experience in narcotics investigations. From my history, working for the DEA and a local task force in the St. Louis area, is this marijuana charge does not fit the sentencing. Okay, I've charged people in federal court with 1,000 pounds of marijuana, and they got quite a lesser sentence than this. So I thank you, Representative, for bringing this up. This is very excessive, and I point out also that today, the Associated Press did a story, a family in Spokane, Washington, they were charged with 4 pounds of marijuana, and they were growing it, okay? So, and I believe they took a plea deal. The AP story was not as clear, but it looks like there will be no conviction to the extent anywhere close to this. So, but thank you very much for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Representative Hubbard, proceed.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment. I have over 30 years of experience in Department of Corrections on the city level as well as the state. And I just want to say to you that I too agree that that's unheard of to have a sentence like that in regarding a marijuana case. So I just want you to know that I will be supporting your piece of legislation.
Thank you, Representative.
Okay, Representative, go ahead.
And just to clarify some comments on the judge, judges must follow the law, and they won't question the law was that at the time, and they have to follow the law. So a judge would not say they're for or against whether, specifically that law should be changed or they made the wrong decision at that time, because they have to follow the law. But I have spoken to other judges, and in the city of St. Louis, they have post-plea drug courts, which dealt with a lot of these people who would have been sentenced to life without the possibility of parole, and they've created that because they did not want to sentence someone to life without the possibility of parole because of possession of a controlled substance, even in any manner, so, thank you.
Representative Mims, proceed.
Mr. Chairman, to inquire and then probably a statement, I'm not sure yet.
You go right
On your
ahead.
person and why he's been incarcerated, has he been in treatment? Did he require treatment?
I know he's been through rehabilitation. I'm not sure if that's the same as treatment.
It is,
Okay.
but I mean, he's been
He has
successful with it.
completed that, yes.
And two, I just want to share with you, I'm just not sure where I'm going. But an extensive, I was going to give you a hard time, and with extensive background in forensics, as you notice, most of us on this board has been around for a long time in this enforcement piece. And with him being here, and he's been a model citizen, have you seen anything where, because I don't like to see people come back out and have nowhere to go, no support system, and he's been locked up for 24 years. That would be, the only concern I would have is for him to be successful coming out.
That is a tough issue. We have
Yes,
some
it
of
is.
his family members here today.
Because
They
they
are
do
incredibly
have the
supportive.
reentry program, you know, we have a lot of stuff to help. And if he's got family that's gonna support him, that's a plus, considering what everybody else is going through. But, you know, I am one of those that, when you're looking at all these pounds and pounds of marijuana, I think if it's legalized myself, this will eliminate most of the problems that we got. But I might support you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Schumate?
Make a comment. Well, see, in looking at the wording, the way you have it here, it almost seems to me like it only applies to the one person. And maybe that's the way it should stay. I would be concerned if we know the criminal code's going to change in 17. There's nobody else at this point that it could apply to. And I'd just like to insert the thought that maybe it's best just to leave it the way you have it here without amendment. That's my comment.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Okay, Representative Schumate, go ahead.
Through any of the convictions, were there any other charges brought forward that were dropped?
Not that I'm aware of. If that was the case, then I don't think you can sentence someone on charges that were dropped.
I just want to know if there were any other charges brought forward before the conviction of the marijuana offenses.
Not that I know of.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just one quick question. I know we've petitioned the governor for a release for this gentleman. Have you received a comment from the governor about this? Has the governor's office contacted you about this at all?
They have not.
Nothing at all.
He released a public statement saying that he'll look at the case before he leaves office in 2016. That's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Okay. Before we start the proceedings on the witnesses, young lady, you come in late. Basically, tell us who you were with and.
Yeah, I'm Ashley with Cannabis.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Anyone here to testify in favor of House Bill 978? Okay, I'd also like to, before I start, or we start, I should say, how many people here are going to testify, want to testify today? I see your hands, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's good. All right. Just a quick reminder, fill out a witness form, very, very important, and welcome, and tell us who you are, and you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Sarah Rossi, R-O-S-S-I. I'm the Director of Policy and Advocacy for the ACLU of Missouri. We're in full support of the Representative's bill. Life in prison without parole for marijuana possession is egregious, and obviously the courts and the legislature have recognized that marijuana possession is not cause for life without parole, especially when it's a possession that is not accompanied by a violent offense. We're in full support of the bill. We appreciate all of your thoughtful questions and taking the bill under consideration, and thank you, Representative, for bringing it.
Okay, anyone here have questions for this witness? Anyone in the committee? Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else testify in favor of this bill? Please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Excuse me. My name is Michael Mizanskey. I'm Jeff Mizanskey's brother. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Show Me Cannabis. Without their help, Jeff's case would not be where it is today. Thank you, Representative Dugan, for introducing the House Bill 478, 978, I'm sorry, being ready. And thank you, Chairman Fitzwater, for going to meet Jeff and immediately arranging for this bill to be heard. My brother has lost 21 years of his life. He has missed out on life's events that someone should not endure. He has lost the opportunity to raise and nurture his son from his sons from teenagers to men. He has not had the joy or the happiness of seeing his grandchildren and being able to hold them and kiss them and love them. The hardest was Jeff not being able to be at our parents' bedside when they were dying. The saddest and most
Sir, you take your time. We're fine.
heart-wrenching thing I had to do was travel from Chicago to Jefferson City Correctional Center to be with my mother, who was dying from cancer. So her and Jeff could say their final goodbyes to each other. That broke Jeff's heart. I am now fulfilling my mother's last words to me before she passed. She made me promise to be committed to getting justice for Jeff. That is why I'm here today. Jeff is my older brother. He's always had a huge influence in my life. He's taught me many things, from hunting, fishing, car mechanics, and simply being a good man. He was also my best man at my wedding. Jeff is a good person. He has served his country in the United States Air Force, and he was honorably discharged. He was always a hard worker and a good provider for his family. I have never met anyone who has said a bad thing about my brother Jeff. Jeff's sentence is unjust. There are habitual criminals that are released from prison only to return for repeating the same crimes. And Jeff languishes in a prison for marijuana due to the 3-strike law that sent Jeff to where he is today. I am pleading to you to please review and consider House Bill 978. Only you have the power to correct the wrongful incarceration of people serving life without parole for marijuana offenses. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you for being here and being so brave and coming forward. You know, earlier there was a question asked from one of the committee members here about family, and Representative Mims, I'm referring to you a little bit here about, you know, re-entry sometimes very tough, especially if you don't have the support of your family. And I think in this situation, you might, if you could just elaborate a little bit on
Oh,
that.
he has all the support. I'll give him a house to stay with. He needs whatever he needs to get going and be a productive member of society. I think he has learned his lesson. You know, there was never a question of was guilty. I was accepted what the sentence, but the sentence was unjust. That's what we're here for, the injustice of the sentence.
You know, one of the things I remember about my meeting, sitting down with him and visiting with him, not one time did he start complaining about the system. You know, not one time did he complain to me about he's been unjustly accused, you know, I'm innocent, get me out of here. Not one time did he do that. And I was impressed, you know, with that. He just basically, he was sentenced, he's doing his time, and again, I appreciate you being here. Any questions from the committee members? Representative Mims, proceed.
I think not so much a question, it's going to be a comment.
I mean, go ahead.
to him. I am pleased to see that you hear that you love your brother, and because it's so difficult when they come out after this many years, time has changed for him. But knowing that he has somebody, and I'm sure there's more than just you in the room, because it's going to be very difficult. How old is he now?
He's 61. He'll be 62 April 25th.
So getting a job is going to be very difficult, but having the support of your family, a place to live, you know, being able to move about and be free, is going to be very important. And to see that he will be nurtured, you know, so that he's not left out there alone. That's, Mr. Chairman, that's a difficult piece. And to see that you're going to help fill that void, I'm pleased to hear it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're so welcome. All right, any other questions for this witness? Thank you, sir, for being here. Thank you. Any other witnesses testify in favor of House Bill 978. Thank you. Welcome, and you may begin.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Joanne Mizanskey. I am Jeff Mizanskey's sister-in-law. I would like to begin by thanking Representative Dogan for introducing House Bill 978. I want to especially thank Chairman Fitzwater for arranging an immediate hearing on this bill. Jeff has lost 21 years of his life that he will never be able to get back. His punishment does not fit his crime. Murderers, pedophiles, and other serious criminals have less harsher sentences. Jeff has paid back and served more time than is reasonable for his offense. It is time to release Jeff. Let him get back to being the hardworking man that he was before being incarcerated. Let him be able to get back to society. Give Jeff back to us, his family. When we go to visit Jeff at the Jefferson City Correctional Center, we always drive down that No More Victims Road, and that road name just saddens me because it symbolizes the voice of the victims who were affected by a crime. But in Jeff's case, he is the victim when we drive down that road behind those walls. He's the victim of a sentence that just simply doesn't fit the crime. I encourage you to please review Jeff's case and support House Bill 978. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for being here. Any questions for this witness? Thank you so much. Seeing none? Anyone else to speak in favor of House Bill 978? Welcome, and you may begin.
Hello, my name is Adela Falk, and I reside in Williamsburg. I want to thank all of you on the Committee of Corrections, especially Representative Fitzwater for holding this hearing on this bill so quickly, and Representative Dogan for putting HB 978 together. Jeff is serving a life without parole sentence for a nonviolent repeat offender cannabis-only crime. He has applied for clemency, however, the governor has failed to act. As of December 19, 2014, Jeff has served 21 years in the Jefferson City Correctional Center. It currently costs taxpayers $57.18 a day to house Jeff, not including his medical expenses. Considering Jeff is 61 years old, his medical costs will continue to increase, thus so will the cost of housing Jeff. As of date, $436,905 have been paid by taxpayers to keep Jeff incarcerated. Jeff received his high school equivalency certificate in Illinois in 1974. He joined the Air Force in 1975 and was honorably discharged in 1977 as a sergeant. While in the Air Force, he was a construction equipment operator, a tractor operator, and a crane operator. He was awarded the National Defense Service Medal and the Air Force Good Conduct Medal. Prior to Jeff's arrest, he owned and operated a shop that specialized in fixing heavy equipment. He ran a business, he had employees, paid taxes, he was a productive member of society. He had a wife and children, and he purchased a house. He worked 5 to 7 days a week taking care of his family. Now, Jeff works at a shop in a prison making 71 cents an hour. He makes desks, tables, and nurse stations that the prison then sells for profit. Like in the Air Force, Jeff, while in prison, continues to earn awards and certificates from the intensive therapeutic community. Such certificate awards include Expediter Crew Coordinator, a Service Crew Coordinator, a Senior Coordinator, Criminality Class, Impacts of Crimes on Victims Class, a Winner's Circle, awards for a total of 8,640 hours of holistic treatment focusing on recovery from criminal thinking and addiction, alternatives to violence, commitment to change errors in thinking, an ITC 12-week course in anger management, and a self-esteem class. Jeff has children, grandchildren, a family, and lots of friends in Missouri that want him home. He has supporters nationwide that want justice for Jeff. Jeff has had media attention from CNN, Riverfront Times, Show Me Cannabis, Huffington Post, High Times, CBS St. Louis, and other local news teams, as well as civil rights groups and cannabis activists. Jeff will continue to gather support as more and more states legalize and/or approve medical marijuana. Jeff has served his time for his cannabis crime he has committed. Please, in the interest of justice, I am asking that you pass this bill and have Jeff released. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anyone else to speak in favor of House Bill 978? Please come forward. Thank you, sir. You may begin.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the committee. My name's Chris Mizanskey. Jeff's my father. I missed out on so much with him being there. He's missed out on so much. He's got a huge support system. He has so many friends and family that are waiting for him to get out to help him out. It's just amazing the support that he has, and and he's a good man. He's never. When he was out of prison, I never wanted for anything. He always had dinner on the table. He always had people, a job. He always had a construction crew, something going on. And if he gets out and everything goes right, and you guys help him out of here, he will be back on his feet and working again and paying taxes and living his life like he's supposed to be. He's a very good man, and I really hope to see him home soon. I thank you guys for taking the time to listen to us, and I thank you guys for taking the time to pay interest into my father's situation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any comments? Yeah, I want to remind you, don't forget to fill out those witness forms. It's very, very important. So if you didn't get one, you can come up and get one and fill it out before you leave. Again, sir, thank you. I remember in your conversation, your dad spoke of you and being able to work a little bit in construction, some of the jobs that he has done in the past. So again, I appreciate you being here.
He's taught me how to be a good man. He's taught me a good work ethic, and he's taught me a lot of stuff. I'd love to have him back in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of House Bill 978? Thank you, sir.
Good morning. My name is Dan Beets. I'm an attorney, and for the past 30 years, I have practiced law throughout the state of Missouri from my office in Columbia. I suspect, represented more marijuana defendants during the past 3 decades than possibly any other attorney in the state of Missouri. I can tell you that in my experience, there is no one who has received such a harsh and unjust sentence as Jeff Mizanskey has. What he is accused of, what he did do is an act which is now legal under laws passed by the voters of 4 states in this country. It was a violation of the law. No one denies that. And Jeff is extremely remorseful, but the sentence is outrageously disproportionate to the seriousness of his crime. He is a good man, and he deserves mercy. He deserves to be released from the Department of Corrections just as quickly as possible. He is an example of the problem that we have with over-incarceration in this country and in this state, but he is an extreme example, which I think makes the point very forcefully that our public policies during the past several decades have resulted in over-incarceration, in particular for nonviolent and really victimless offenses like the ones that Mr. Mizanskey's been accused of. I trust that all of you are aware that although he's been convicted of 3 separate marijuana offenses, Jeff has never been even accused of, let alone convicted of, any crime of violence, any crime that had an identifiable victim, indeed no other crime whatsoever during his entire life. I thank you very much. I'll be happy to respond to questions.
Representative Hubbard, and thank you for being here. Proceed, Representative Hubbard.
Thank you. What year was that sentence imposed on him?
Well, 21 years ago.
95? 94, 95?
94.
I can tell you, and again, forgive me if this point's been made, but the prosecuting attorney who prosecuted Jeff's case, Mr. Jeff Mizanskey, recently elected an associate judge in Pettis County, is someone I consider to be a friend and a colleague. And Jeff has gone on public record, Jeff Mizanskey, the prosecutor, saying that he believes that Mr. Mizanskey should be released, that he has suffered enough.
Yes.
Thank you. One other question. Is there anyone else that you know of has ever been given a sentence for a marijuana case, no probation and parole, life sentence?
Not that I'm aware of, thank goodness, no.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Black, proceed.
Thank you. I had asked this question earlier. I don't think you were in the room. I understand the prosecutor at the time has made a public statement that this was an overreach of justice, but we haven't heard if the judge that imposed the sentence has made any outward statement, because he had discretion. He chose to fully implement the full extent of the law. And has he made a public statement as to why he chose that sentence?
You are absolutely correct that he bears responsibility for the sentence that was imposed. And no, to my knowledge, he has not made a public statement indicating whether or not he regrets that.
Thank you. Representative Bratton, proceed.
To kind of follow up on that, I mean, did statute mandate that the judge made that sentence?
No, sir.
Or it was he did have the discretion to give him that type of harsh sentence?
He did under the present law. Now, again, as you may know, that law has been repealed. Part of the criminal code.
The law in 1994, was he mandated kind of by statute to give that sentence of the 3 strikes?
No, sir, but the law allowed him to give that sentence.
Allowed him.
The so-called prior and persistent drug offender statute, which is still on the books right now, but which will be repealed effective January 1 of 2017 pursuant to the criminal code revision. I had the honor of serving on the Missouri Bar Committee that drafted that very large bill, and that was one of the points that we were very adamant should be included, is to repeal that statute so that no one else suffers the penalty that Jeff has.
No, I totally agree. I think this sentence is just out of this world, crazy. I see people that have, so many DUIs under their belt, and they get, a few years in prison. This guy gets, 3 strikes and life without parole is pretty crazy. We see all these crazy, heinous, sexual offenders that they get out in a few years.
Indeed.
And this guy, it blows my mind. So
Jeff has seen many other defendants come in and leave prison who were convicted of horrible crimes, terribly violent crimes with very identifiable victims, and yet they come and leave, and Jeff remains where he is. As you know, unless the governor acts or unless this bill is passed, he will die in prison.
thank you, gentlemen.
Representative Mims, I believe you were first. You had a comment. Go ahead.
And I'm only going to add to inquire the question to this attorney, and I'll share with him why. Is this the only person that this particular judge has ever put this sentence on?
Well, he's the only person who has received such a harsh sentence for nonviolent marijuana offenses. We're reasonably certain he's the only one. So I don't think this judge, by logic that would be true, that no, this judge has never given anyone else that harsh a sentence for this type of offense with this type of prior record or lack of prior record.
And I tell you why I asked you that question. I have followed your work, and you're talking about thorough research and studying the case. I've not seen a person put so much work into, and I've torn down everything that I can think of that you've done on a case like this, trying to find a loophole. And I just want to say to you, I appreciate you standing up for the people under that.
That is very kind of you, but I want to say I have not done nearly the work a lot of other folks have. In fact, another attorney here in the room, Tony Nenninger, deserves the bulk of the credit for doing hard work and filing the clemency request here, but I appreciate your comments.
Well, I've seen your name signed on a lot of it.
I've been around a while. Thanks.
Yes, you have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Hubbard, proceed.
Quick question. Were you involved in the clemency process to the governor to have this inmate released?
Well, I hope I was maybe of a little assistance, but again, Mr. Tony Nenninger deserves the bulk of the credit for that clemency request.
Any other questions for this witness? See you none. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, anyone else to testify in favor of House Bill 978?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Lynn Schlosser, I'm a registered lobbyist for Show Me Cannabis. I'd like to go on the record in support.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anyone else? Welcome.
Hi, members of the committee. My name is Kelsey. I'm just an average citizen in Missouri. I'm 24. I'm living my life. I'm growing up in Missouri, and this case came to my attention, and it really made me mad. It made me mad that we don't have another way of fixing this, of making it better and changing what everybody is a consensus is wrong. I have not spoken to a single person, whether they're old, whether they're young, whether they live in Missouri, whether they live in Africa, who does not believe this is wrong. Something is wrong and we need to fix it, and you guys have that opportunity. He has been awesome enough to give you this opportunity to fix a wrong that everybody agrees on, and we as Missouri citizens would appreciate it if you guys took up the reins that Governor Nixon has left down. We've asked him, we've signed petitions, we've called him, we've written letters. He's not listening to us, so we're calling on you. We're telling you it's your turn. Pick up the reins. You got to fix what's wrong, and you got to make it right for us, the citizens who elected you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none. Anyone else? here to speak in favor of House Bill 978. Yeah, she had a form, I believe she did.
Yes.
Yeah, I saw her drop it. Anyone else? Come forward, please, and welcome, and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Janet Uplinger, and I'm with Show Me Cannabis. I have a group in Pettis County for Jeff for Show Me Cannabis. It's called Missourians for Cannabis / Pettis County. And I have a letter here from a police officer from Sedalia I'd like to read to you all today, if I could.
Begin? Yeah, go ahead.
This is from Ron Parrish. He is a retired Sedalia police detective. Governor Nixon, my name is Ron Parrish. I'm a retired police detective from the Sedalia Police Department. My civilian law enforcement career started in 1986. I was also a federal agent with the Air Force of Special Investigations, IMA. He's an IMA reservist, serving in operations in Noble, Anvil, Enduring Freedom, and Iraqi Freedom. He served 10 years from 1996 to 2006. The following letter, sir, is only my opinion. I have not solicited the view of the Sedalia Police Department, Pettis County's Prosecutor's Office, or the United States Air Force Office for Special Investigations. As a young patrolman, I was assigned to the district in where Jeff Mizanskey resided on East 5th Street. I worked the afternoon shift 3 to 11 p.m. and midnight shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. I did not know Mizanskey on a personal basis, nor his family, but I knew he drove a red Firebird and he lived on East 5th Street. I knew Mizanskey worked in an apartment complex as the head maintenance man. I recall engaging with Mizanskey throughout the years as a patrolman, working in the area of his neighborhood and the apartment complex where he was employed. Mizanskey was always polite and cordial in my dealings with him. I recall a few times while he was employed at the apartment complex, he would assist me in entry to the complex due to the coded entry pad again, and he was always polite and professional. I had never heard from any of my working counterparts or informants Mizanskey was a violent individual. I'm confident if Mizanskey had a violent tendencies, he would have been conveyed to me. In 1991, I was assigned to the Pettis County Drug Task Force under the direct supervision of Prosecutor Attorney Jeff Millhauser. I remained on the task force until 1993. During this time, I recall Mizanskey's name coming up for the use and sales of marijuana. There was no information on Mizanskey for anything other than marijuana. While actively on the drug task force, I don't recall Mizanskey's name ever being mentioned or associated with violence or aggression. I feel confident during Mizanskey's marijuana involvement, I would have heard if he had demonstrated any violent tendencies. As a law enforcement officer and drug investigator, I knew weapons and violence are often associated with illegal drug sales. I write to tell you, sir, and ask you to do the right thing and pardon Jeff Mizanskey. I am a firm believer everyone needs to be held accountable for their actions, and I believe as a law enforcement officer, and more importantly, as a father. But I also believe punishment must mirror the crime. Absolutely no doubt Jeff Mizanskey deserved to do prison time for his third conviction, or for his third felony offense, but sir, due to the totality of the circumstances, nonviolent felonies, no history of violence, and the current society's perception of marijuana, I firmly believe Mizanskey has paid his debt to society, and equally important, Mizanskey has no history of being violent if placed back into society. I absolutely concur with Mr. Mittelhauser's opinion on the case. Jeff Mizanskey has done enough punishment for the crimes he has committed. Sir, in closing, I would like you to know that I have never tried marijuana and currently do not condone its use or sales. I do not personally know the Mizanskey family. I have not been solicited or paid to write this. I write this on my own free will. I just pray you will acknowledge Mizanskey has done time for his crime and feel confident Mizanskey is not a threat to society if he's released. I also believe reasonable and prudent citizens of our state concur that Mizanskey should be pardoned. Ron Parrish, Sedalia, Missouri.
Okay, thank you for bringing that forward. Any questions for this witness? Thank you, ma'am, for being here. Any other witness here to speak in favor of House Bill 978? Any other witnesses? Okay, seeing none. Anyone here to speak in opposition to House Bill 978? Seeing none. Anyone here for informational purposes only? Seeing none. That concludes the hearing on House Bill 978. Representative Dogan, do you have any closing remarks?
I just wanted to thank all the witnesses who came to testify in favor of Mr. Mizanskey and just repeat my belief that this was an unjust sentence, and encourage you all to pass this bill, and thank you for the hearing.
Okay. Thank you for bringing this forward. All righty. That concludes our hearing on this bill, and we are adjourned. Thank you.